Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Independent Thought. My name is Desmond Price, and for today's guest segment, we are joined by two different members of the Montana State University Climate Coalition. Zach, Hailey, how are you both doing today? Thank you for coming on to the show.
Doing great, Desmond. Thanks so much for having us.
Yeah, absolutely. So I just want to both go ahead and have you both introduce yourselves a little before we get into the questions. Hailey, why exactly did you get involved with the Climate Coalition?
At the time, I was involved with the Sunrise Movement, which was a local climate justice group in Bozeman. And Will Wright, who was kind of leading the charge at the time, reached out to us to see if anyone was interested. And I was the only student in the group at the time and hadn't heard of it, but it sounded really interesting. So I went to a couple meetings.
All right. And how about you, Zach?
So this is actually cool because the reason that I joined was because of Haley. We had a class together last semester, and she stood up at the beginning of the semester and was like, yo, there's this climate coalition on campus. We're trying to push the university to divest. We'd love to have you come check it out. I came and checked it out. And ever since then, I was like, yes, this is totally my crowd. This is what I want to do.
Okay. So let's just dive right into the topic of discussion here. Well, first, before we get into divestment, which I know is why we're here, first, just for the people who are listening at home or who are watching this in the future, I want to start off with you, Hailey. What exactly is the goal of the Climate Coalition as far as like what the organization is trying to achieve?
Yeah, we have our main goal right now is to get the university to divest from fossil fuels from its endowment, which is managed by the Alumni Foundation. And that's money that comes from donors and is funds like scholarships and teacher resources. And right now there's 19 million invested in fossil fuels.
Okay. And when we talk about divestment, like particularly for those who might be a little just unfamiliar with what exactly that means, Zach, can you just break that down for us a little bit? Like what exactly does it mean for the school to divest from fossil fuels?
Sure. So it's really easy to think of it this way. It's literally the opposite of investing. So investing, you're putting money in something. Divesting, you're taking that money out of it. And whether that's individual stocks, securities and bonds, or mutual funds.
Okay. So Hailey, how exactly has Montana State been investing in fossil fuels? Like if we were to peel back the layers and look at exactly how the money is being invested currently, like what does that look like as it stands today?
So yeah, the endowment is managed by Wilshire Investment Group, and the Alumni Foundation trusts them to put their money in their endowment into different funds. And so that 19 million is, I'm not sure exactly which fossil fuels. Zach, do you remember which companies?
Yeah, so we don't invest in individual securities. We invest in mutual funds mostly. And so within those mutual funds, we know that we're invested in at least Lukoil, BHP, ExxonMobil, Rio Tinto, Glencore, and then JP Morgan, which is one of the biggest financiers of the fossil fuel industry.
And about how long has this been going on for?
How long have we been invested in fossil fuels?
Yes.
I would assume since the inception of the university.
So going back over 100 years, we're saying.
Or should I say since the inception of the university's endowment, whenever they started investing.
Okay. So I get the next question I have here, and this is going to be back to you, Zach. Since the Climate Coalition has started on campus, has this been like an issue that students outside of the coalition have kind of like rallied behind, or have you been able to get your message out there to the other students at MSU about what's going on and what you're trying to accomplish?
Yeah, so we've done some teach-ins in classes. We've done some tabling out on campus. We just held an event with Bill McKibben, who is a world-renowned environmentalist. And he came and talked on campus about divestment. So we've been trying to do some public-facing events like that to get people engaged. We have a petition right now that's nearing about 1,000 signatures. And then we've also been doing a letter writing campaign to the Alumni Foundation, trying to get other students to write letters to them, asking them to divest. So there is a good group of people outside of strictly the coalition that do support it. Yeah.
Okay. And how has that effort been overall? Like, has it been like easy to like recruit new people to join like your efforts, or to get more people like involved, or has the university given any kind of pushback at all, Hailey?
Yeah, it's the people that we end up talking to, most are pretty excited about it and just have no idea what's been going on. The university isn't super excited about us trying to get it to divest. I think they see it as a political stance and are just not super willing to take that political stance. For overall, though, I think, yeah, everyone we've contacted has been super excited.
Okay. So we are actually going to take a quick break, but when we come back, I'm going to have a few more questions about what exactly is going on at Montana State University with the Climate Coalition. So stay tuned. We'll be right back after this quick break. Okay, welcome back from the break, everyone. Thank you for sticking with us through this episode of Independent Thought. As we kind of jump back into this, I want to ask a couple different personal questions. Whenever I have someone come on, talk about any issue, this obviously is a political podcast. I'd love to know why people get involved in politics, as it may. Hailey, I want to start with you. What was it that I guess like personally made you want to get involved in this issue specifically? Were you doing something else beforehand that kind of like preceded that made you want to jump into this?
Yeah, so just climate change in general was something I didn't really care about until 4 years ago. And for me, when I finally started wanting to get involved and engage with it, was when it was framed to me from an immigration standpoint. I grew up in California and just remember the immigration process being so gnarly for so many of my friends and people getting deported. I thought I wanted to do immigration law for a while. And then someone came to the school and talked about the effect climate change would have on climate refugees and just the immigration process. And that was so overwhelming, just like seeing how much more intense it's going to get unless we start thinking about climate change. So that's when I wanted to start focusing on climate policy, like as soon as I could. And there's some dogs in the background. And so when Will Wright reached out to me about divestment, I realized like this is a way that I can really like within the scope of my abilities affect something. And so divestment was interesting to me because it was something I felt like I could really affect in the grand scheme of climate change.
Yeah, I mean, that's an incredibly important feeling to have, the feeling that you can actually have some power over all the different like injustices that we're seeing around the country. Zach, what was like your personal reason for wanting to get involved?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, I'm an environmentalist. I care about the environment. I care about what climate change is doing to, especially Montana, with decreased snowpack, wildfires, lower water levels in our streams. But it really does go beyond that for me. I think I'm really interested in the technical policy side of it. And so bear with me. I have like a couple reasons why I really care about this.
Yeah.
And so the first one is kind of coming from a national security perspective. And when we look at the different ways that we can source our energy, we have natural gas, fossil fuels. We also have renewable energy, solar, wind, nuclear, hydro, etc. But a large portion of the way that we source our energy right now in the US is fossil fuels. And what is unfortunate about that from a national security perspective is that we get a lot of that oil, or we did get a lot of that oil from Russia. We've now cut that off, and Saudi Arabia. And so now cutting that oil off from Russia means we're going to be trying to look to Saudi Arabia to get this oil now. And so when we're depending on these authoritarian states for the ability to turn our lights on, like literally the things that we need to have our society run, that really scares me. And so on the other side of that also is how that affects consumers. And I think we all recently have seen the prices at the pump. The average price of gas has gone up from $3 of May of last year to $4.38. I checked today. That's 46% in the last year. And that's a direct hit on the pocketbooks of consumers, especially low income Americans. And so I think it's really important that we have a secured domestic energy supply chain. And also what's great about renewable energy and transitioning away from fossil fuels is I already kind of talked about how gas prices fluctuate. Solar energy, wind energy, nuclear energy, hydro energy, all of that energy is a flat price. In fact, it's actually going down, but it's not going up. It's not fluctuating up. So it's always getting cheaper for the consumer, and there's a lot more consistency. And then another thing that I think is really important is this human rights aspect of it. There's a recent study that came out from Harvard and the University of Birmingham, and they found that air pollution from burning fossil fuels is responsible for about 1 in 5 deaths worldwide. That was more than 8 million people in 2018. And that's more deaths caused by fossil fuel particulate matter than is caused by AIDS, tuberculosis, and malaria combined annually.
Wow. So that's pretty staggering statistic to leave us off with. So obviously, you know, as everyone basically knows, or at least you would hope that everyone knows, the climate is changing to a dramatic effect. We're even seeing things, you know, this week as far as, you know, heat waves going through Texas, reaching record highs down there right now. When it comes to how the administration has responded, I want to switch to that really quickly here now. Obviously, you brought your concerns to them. Hailey, what has their response been like so far when you have spoken with officials at the university?
It's been really interesting. So I was also on the campus sustainability advisory council for a while and was part of passing the sustainability framework. And even people that are like really concerned about climate change and really care about it are really afraid of higher ups at the university, afraid of losing their jobs. Cruzado doesn't seem super concerned with prioritizing climate policy stuff on campus. And yeah, there's definitely been some fear from faculty if I've interacted, specifically with the working group. I'm not on the working group, but from what I've heard from the people that are, a lot of the people are like, oh, you need to prioritize like directly targeting Exxon, and like that's how you're going to really get these changes is by directly targeting these companies, which is absurd because like us as like university students, we don't have that much impact on Exxon. We have impact on the divestment campaign, which links us to an international divestment campaign, divesting trillions of dollars from these companies, and that's what affects it, not us yelling at Exxon.
So, you know, I know that, you know, Hailey kind of touched on this earlier, but, you know, Zach, why do you think that the university has been so resistant, you know, to your calls for action?
Yeah, I think it's the political climate that we live in Montana, as well as the fact that as a very engineering heavy school, we are very intertwined with the fossil fuel industry. The top third donor to our university is a former fossil fuel CEO. We have multiple people who work in the fossil fuel industry on the Alumni Foundation who are making these decisions for our endowment. The Alumni Foundation received a letter from the Montana Petroleum Association expressing that they were very upset that they were considering divestment. And so I think the investing committee and Alumni Foundation is really scared that if they make a move to divest from fossil fuels, or if anything is too public facing, that they're going to start losing donor dollars.
Yeah.
And that's something that's really been prioritized, especially lately, is trying to just make as much money as possible.
Sounds like any other business, I guess you would say, which schools claims that they are not. But, you know, when it comes to this issue particularly, Hailey, do you think that there are some other intersectionalities between this issue and other issues like on campus as a whole?
Yeah, definitely. One thing we were trying to push for at first was divestment from private prisons, which, you know, also affects, especially in Montana, the Native population way more represented in prisons than they should be. So yeah, the university should not be doing things like that, especially like affect their students. There is that oppression. Well, there is, yeah. Zach, do you have anything to add to that?
I guess this isn't like another topic, but it's something else on campus that we have been talking about, and especially moving forward, we want to consider really pushing the university to change is getting the university to divest in terms of its investments is really important, but there's a lot of other aspects of campus that are contributing to our carbon footprint. And so another one of the things that's really important, at least in my opinion, is we need to push the university to start divesting its carbon footprint in terms of its operations. So that's burning natural gas to create steam at the heating plant on campus. That's how can we mitigate the amount of energy that we have to get from Northwestern Energy, because we all know Northwestern Energy is not transitioning anytime soon. So yeah, I think something that's really important is, one, the operations at MSU, but also how we can start to shift the culture with students, faculty, administrators, and just how they look at everyday things in their life, whether it's just riding your bike to school versus driving your car, whether it's the carbon impact of the food you're eating, et cetera, et cetera.
So one of the final questions that I have for both of you is the role of, let's just call it, outsider money influencing Montana State University's policies. Has that become a massive like detrimental issue at the university? And is it something that you are talking about to other students and to the university itself, like in relation to this this coalition? I was like, well, what you're trying to do with divestment as well?
I don't. Go for it, Elise. No, sorry, go for it.
Yeah, no, if the university is, actively trying to stop things like this or not pushing as hard on education that is up to date with climate science, that's a huge problem. Like, yes, the university needs to make money, but it is providing to be accurate and up to date and not influenced by money as much as possible. I know there's still classes in the ag department that things like carbon sequestration isn't even, like, trees don't do carbon sequestration, so we like cut them down and do cow pastures instead and stuff like that. That's like in the university education system. And so I know some of my professors have been pushing for is more climate science policy, and that's been really shut down as well. Yeah, I'd say it is an issue. It's not something we super enact, I think, when we're talking to students about it, but yeah, it's all related.
I will add that there also has been a recent conversation kind of about this topic as it pertains to something else. And that is that Gianforte's foundation just made a $50 million plus donation to MSU to create a new school of computer science, I believe.
Okay.
Our building for computer science. And he wants his name on the building. And so one of the things that's being discussed at MSU is how you have an active political figure making a contribution to the university, and then that university putting a name on the building is endorsing that political figure. So I think there is starting to be a conversation about outside money as it pertains to the university, but I think it's a new conversation that is really just getting off the ground.
Perfect. Well, I appreciate both of you coming on the show today and telling us about, the goals of the Climate Coalition, about trying to get Montana State University to divest from fossil fuels. Zach, is there a place where people can go online and just like follow more with what you're doing and learn more about what the coalition's trying to do?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a website and it is divestmsu.org. And then we also have an Instagram, and that is MSU Campus Climate Coalition.
All right, everyone. So we'll have some links to both of those in the episode description. So if you're listening right now, drop it to the episode description. You'll be able to see either one of those links. I want to thank my guests for coming on today. Zach, Hailey, thank you so much for coming on. Stick around for one final break. And when we come back, we'll have my final thoughts of the day. Thanks again. Stay tuned.